Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Apologies, we're doing this a little differently. Some technical issues, as always happens. Trying to get back in the swing of things. Obviously, I was out last week on family vacation, plus still recovering from COVID. If you listened to the episode from the Tuesday before, or that we recorded Monday, you probably heard me thinking that my sore throat was just from all the talking I did at Comic-Con. Turns out not so. Turns out I had COVID. Turns out COVID sucks. And I still have a little bit of a cough, so apologies for that. I'm sure you'll hear some scratchingness and my voice and some coughing and whatnot as we go through this. So I did real quickly, just because last week was such a big week. Just real briefly, I was going to go through and give my one sentence thoughts on these books, because yeah, it was I hated to miss it, but it just wasn't feasible. I was in a condo on the beach, which is nice, but with 10 other people, it's just not conducive to recording.
Well, I don't feel sorry for you, Jace. I mean, you're
Yeah.
on a beach, so I don't feel sorry for you at all.
Yeah, I don't feel bad at all,
I'm
but I
jealous.
did. Yeah, I did feel bad because it was such a great week. I thought Batman White Knight Presents Red Hood was an interesting, different take on Jason Todd. Obviously, this different version where he was the first Robin. Gann seems like she's a likable character. I'm curious to see where that goes. Will it be my favorite version of Jason Todd? No, I can already tell it won't be, but all credit to Sean Gordon Murphy for creating something that feels fresh. Batman 126, we saw Failsafe really kick the crap out of Batman. I still stand by what I said. I think it's Batman himself that created it. And I think the reason that he doesn't remember, but it vaguely feels familiar, is because he probably went in and then erased his memory of making it, so he wouldn't know how to stop it. So I did appreciate the action. This felt much more like what I expected a Chip Zdarsky Batman book to feel like, because I was a little underwhelmed with the first issue. So heading in the right direction. New champion of Shazam. Loved the Doc Shaner art. Loved what Josie Campbell's doing with Mary Marvel. I'm glad she's getting her own book. I'm a fan of Shazam. I'm a fan of Captain Marvel, but I'd be lying if I said that I feel like DC hasn't used him the best over the years. And I don't know what it is about him. They just don't seem to be able to really nail him where it's a really compelling story. So I think this feels more compelling. This might actually be better to focus on Mary as opposed to Billy. Sword of Azrael, I thought it was okay. Reading the Sword of Azrael, Knight of the Soul, which was all the urban legends combined in one sitting, actually made me enjoy that story a lot more. So I did enjoy the Sword of Azrael. The art was a little underwhelming for me. Multiversity Team Justice, it's getting better. I'm still not super invested in the characters, but I like the direction they're going. Poison Ivy, I really enjoyed the Poison Ivy. I really like what G. Willow Wilson's doing. I'm liking the Poison Ivy series. I'm liking that she's having doubts. It's taking that edge off that we talked about the first couple issues where she's just killing everybody, and we're like, oh my God, she's back to her villainous roots. Turns out, no, she is compassionate. She just loves the earth that much that she cares. Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, obviously, finally starting to move forward. I like where it's going. That final scene with all the black stuff busting out of Slade was pretty awesome. Black Adam, the Justice Society file Cyclone, I just thought it was average. It was okay. Good introduction to Cyclone. Batman Beyond Neo Year, I really enjoyed. I liked the 3 months later. I liked that he was just Terry McGinnis was just down in the cave pumping iron for those 3 months. That was great. Aquaman Andromeda, a little bit paint by the numbers, which is not what I expect from Rom V. I expect him to do something a little more fresh, but it's exactly what I said. This is fear. This is what the people think. Their fears become reality. So a little underwhelmed there. Harley Quinn, we'll talk about Harley Quinn 19 today. Harley Quinn 18, it's Harley Quinn in space. It's fun. Don't know that I have much more to say than that. DC versus Vampires, I thought was also really good. Like, okay, this is what it is, and now it feels like we're finally moving forward. We've talked about it dragging on a little bit too long. At least now it feels like the heroes have a plan to fight back, so I did appreciate that. Batman killing time was interesting. I almost was left feeling like, what was the point of that story? Somebody at a pawn shop buys what turned out to just be a stone eye from a sculpture. It was like the action was the point, which is kind of interesting for a Tom King book, because usually the action is secondary to whatever thing he wants to explore. So I think that's what he's talking about when he's saying big popcorn movie, a lot of action. in a way, the series itself was just killing time. Like we read the series just to read the series and pass some time. It wasn't profound. There wasn't anything revelatory about it. It was just a whole hell of a lot of action. A whole
Well,
lot of
they were all fighting over an eye that was worthless, and I still don't understand why Bruce Wayne felt the need to lock it in a vault where it got robbed. Why was he locking up something that had no value?
Ra's al Ghul locked in that fight in the final issue. It was Ra's al Ghul that said that he locked it away. He locked it away because he wanted it a certain distance from him, but didn't just want to get rid of it. He did care about it. He didn't. So yeah, it was, but it was in essence kind of worthless. But at the same time, you could think of like a $1 bill being worthless or a $100 bill being worthless, right? It's only that value because we say it has that value. So same kind of thing. But yeah, it turns out Killing Time had that name had a lot more. It was more prevalent or more prescient than we might have thought. Yeah. And then Flashpoint Beyond, obviously with Martha Wayne showing up at the end, just blew me away. I really don't know where that series is going, but I'm definitely enjoying it. So anyway, that's last week's books. Let's move on to this week. It's not quite as good, a little more on the average side. We'll kick it off with Blood Syndicate, written by Geoffrey Thorne. We have pencils by Chris Cross for pages 1 through 9 and Sean Damian Hill for pages 10 through 20. Inks are by Juan Castro, colors by Will Quintana, letters by Anvil Design. Kind of similar to Batman Killing Time in that this is just a whole heck of a lot of action. We know that this character Holocaust has basically said, I'm in charge of Dakota Island. All the gangs are going to, fall under my rule. And if you don't like it, I'm just going to burn everybody down, which is what happened a couple of issues ago. And it seems like the remnants of the gang, the gang members from all the different gangs that have powers, they're the ones that have survived this assault by Holocaust. They're the ones that are going to come together and join Blood Syndicate. The complaints I have about it are sort of the same that I've had throughout. I think that the slang and the colloquialisms are really going to date this book quite a bit. But I get it. I mean, this is how people talk, but it's how people talk right now. It's not how they're going to talk forever. So again, I think it will date the book. I did think the art was solid, and it is a lot of action. One thing I will say is it has such a large cast of characters that at times it's hard to keep everybody straight. So it might be an issue where, hey, let me go back and read it when everything is said and done, and I might get a little better understanding of it, because I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm lost, but man, it's I have to like stop at times and go, wait, okay, who's this character that's talking? This was the guy that was the soldier overseas. This is the guy that stayed behind, like that kind of thing. So, but that's just not me not being super familiar with the characters. So all in all, it's solid. And I think it does pay homage to the original Blood Syndicate, which I think I only read 2 issues of back in the day, but it pretty much the same premise, a bunch of gang bangers get powers and, rather than use it for crime, they use it to sort of protect their turf. So not necessarily heroes, not villains, more in the anti-hero vein. So what do you think, Rocky?
You just stated it. I love that premise. I love that premise of like gang members that are gang that get superpowers, and most of them do it for good, but they're not all necessarily really good or moral people, but they're not necessarily immoral, except for Holocaust. Of course, there's always one bad apple. And I will say that I love the action here. Just as a comparison, those who've read Geoffrey Thorne's Green Lantern, I thought that Green Lantern, I think you and I reviewed every issue of Green Lantern, those 12 issues. That was a challenging read at times. Geoffrey Thorne is not afraid to really challenge the reader. And he worked with different, I thought that Green Lantern was frankly just as challenging to read as this. But I actually found this to be at times even easier to read than his Green Lantern. But this is a little bit more, dare I say, rewarding if you stick it out, because I really love the action here. And it's funny because I'm normally somebody, I would normally be inclined to agree with somebody, like when you make a criticism about the language and the dialogue. I've gotten accustomed to it. I think you make a interesting comment as to whether or not it will age well in terms of dialogue. I'm I don't really know, but I'm familiar enough with the story. The art here by Chris Cross is absolutely excellent. And I think, frankly, this is issue 4. In 4 issues, we've got a lot of action. We've got good character moments, good story. Frankly, of Geoffrey Thorne's work, I know his Green Lantern's gotten the most attention, but I actually think that this is a better written story than his Green Lantern, and
Oh, 100%.
we've gotten more action and and I think more interesting character development than in Green Lantern. And don't get me wrong, he did develop John Stewart. He's got a passion for John Stewart, and it did show in Green Lantern, but it became convoluted between some complex plotting that I think he lost himself in the narrative in Green Lantern a little bit. This is a little bit closer to home. I get a sense that Geoffrey Thorne knows this subject matter a little bit better. He knows the dialogue a little bit better, and it shines through. When I say dialogue, I mean he has the voices of these characters. I really love Holocaust here. This is an evil bastard, this Holocaust character, and this is something where as I said before, I never paid much attention to the Milestone line in '96, and I was an avid collector then. And shame on me, better late than never. And I thought this was a pretty good, good opening 4 issues, and this ends on a big cliffhanger, a huge explosion, and next issue promises to be continue with the action. So, this is probably my comic that continues. This is actually one of the better comics this week, quite frankly. It's only this and one other comic that I like this week out of 13. So I thought I think that's at least a little bit of a compliment at the very least.
Yeah, fair enough. Next up, we have Batgirls #9, written by Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad. Neil Gouge on art. Rico Renzi does colors. Becca Carey on letters. What do you think?
Well, this one here, and I don't forgive me, Jace. I'm not sure if you can. I'm trying to share my screen a little bit here. I know that we're on Zoom. I don't know if it's working all that well.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Hopefully it's not too bad. That I don't want to sound like a broken record. We've reviewed this before. I always find starting with the covers. I think the covers say so much about both our mutual criticisms of this series, or at least our observations that this is a series that purports to talk about adult subject matter with sort of older teenagers, and yet we've got covers that sort of betray that in some respect, and that it's almost like written for a lower demographic, and then the story suggests otherwise. But in any event, this is Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad here. They in this issue, I find that the story actually improves. I actually enjoy this issue from a storytelling point of view more than previous issues, because one of the ongoing sort of like almost comical things is that Stephanie Brown has been spying on their neighbor, thinking that he's this serial killer that's going around, because they haven't caught this local serial killer apparently that's going around, and she's spying on this character. And she's literally as Barbara Gordon is visiting an old friend, Alicia, and as Cassandra Cain is out doing her things, like Stephanie Cain is hiding out, getting a suntan on the roof of their building, spying on her neighbor. And then for no reason whatsoever, all of a sudden, when Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain, they're just out on patrols, and they for no reason whatsoever, they get attacked by KGBs. KGB is out to kill them, and it's sort of played for a joke. And Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, they're clearly trying to have fun with this. They're trying to have almost to break the fourth wall a little bit. They're trying to incorporate and sort of like pull in the reader that way. And they've done this before, and they continue to try that. It just doesn't. It's failed. It hasn't really worked for me. And I know what they're trying to do, and I'll give them props for maybe trying to do something different, but it feels silly, and it's such serious subject matter. I mean, they're taking on KGBs who basically almost killed Dick Grayson and made him Rick Grayson for a while there. And there's kudos to the editor, at least there's editorial references to that, but there's just really wonkiness and silliness to it. And I know I'm a giant boy at heart. I think we all are who read comic books, but this just feels even more sillier than I would like it to be. This is more really like young teenage adult than adult that younger people can enjoy. And but I the story wise, it's interesting. I just wish maybe it's the art again. It's still a little off for me. But their neighbor Stephanie Brown, she discovers unfortunately that her neighbor is in fact, unfortunately, he's killed. He's found murdered. So obviously he's not the serial killer. He's in fact a victim of a serial killer. And that is sort of like the big cliffhanger that will take us into the next issue, which promises, it looks like I guess Killer Moth will be in next issue by the looks of things. But so I still, I mean, at this point, I'm sort of resigned myself to the fact that this comic book is not really written for me, and I understand why, but frankly, it ought to be written for all ages, but it doesn't feel like it's written for all ages. It really feels like it's written for, it's not written with enough of with a significant enough compelling story to it to really keep me glued to it. It's almost trying too hard to appeal to a demographic that I question whether or not it's reading it when I look at the sales numbers. But maybe that's me just being cynical. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a fun book, and that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because I totally get, I totally get what you're saying. Do I think this is on the target demographic for this? No, not at all. This is for newer readers who aren't as familiar with the DCU. Because I feel kind of the same. Like KG Beast, to me, that he's like a serious villain. He's a serious, dangerous, formidable foe, and he's played for, like you said, comedic effect here, which is fine. Because even Cassandra Cain, she's supposed to be the best fighter in the DC universe. And, even she comes across as much younger here than I would, necessarily expect her to be based on, other stories that I've read. But those stories all still exist, and I can go back and I can read those stories and I can enjoy them. So I'm glad this comic exists in terms of being able to bring in new readers and introduce them to some of these characters. But yeah, I agree. I know this book is not for me, but it is a lot of fun. And if you just approach it that way, then you can enjoy it as somewhat of a palate cleanser, because it does have funny moments like Stephanie Brown getting hit by what I assume was Killer Moth and falling off the building and bouncing off a dumpster and whatever. So yeah, I appreciate it for what it is, but yeah, am I the target audience? Nah, not necessarily. And I won't even get into the whole what the heck's going on. Renee Montoya is the commissioner still at Gotham PD in one book, and another book she's the Question in New York City and not the commissioner. More like, I don't know what's going on. Let's gloss over that and move on to the next book, which is Deceased: War of the Undead Gods #1. This is written by Tom Taylor. Pencils are by Trevor Hairsine. Inks are by Andy Lanning. Colors by Rain Barreto. And letters by Sara Temofonte. Now, I have to say, in the interest of full disclosure, that I never read the previous DC stuff. I read like the very first issue of Deceased, and then I never went back and read any of the rest of the stuff. I was just too busy. I know the basics, right? Basically, the anti-life equation takes over. A lot of heroes die. Eventually, they're able to bring some of them back. We see that. I will give Tom Taylor a heck of a lot of credit for making this new reader friendly, even though it's the third issue in the series, because he does recap enough. And the fact that Black Canary, what used to be Black Canary, is now a Green Lantern and has a sword is kind of cool. There's a lot of cool concept here, again, that I'm tangentially aware of just from being a DC fan, but that I wasn't, basically when I read this, I was like, man, I really need to go read the whole DC storyline. So it does a good job of recapping what has happened in the sort of deceased universe, I guess we'll call it, of the DCU, while at the end setting up that there's a big war to come, because apparently the anti-life equation has taken over the gods, the new gods, the old gods, dark side. We're going to see a deceased version of dark side and whatnot. So bit of a setup issue, but also a bit of a recap issue. And if you're a fan of Trevor Hairsine's art, which at times his faces can be a little wonky. He uses very fine lines, and normally I'm a fan of fine lines, but sometimes it gets a little too fine in the facial features. But for the most part, I enjoy his art. He's a very good storyteller, and the way he sets up his panels is always interesting to me. I really love his sense of like cinematography, where the camera angles he chooses, what he chooses to zoom in on, that sort of stuff. He's a very good storyteller in that sense. So yeah, I enjoyed this. It definitely made me want to go back and get caught up on all the deceased stuff. I think there's 3 previous volumes, including a digital only.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely gonna have to do that before this is over, because this is an 8-issue limited. And obviously we're getting, it's not a spoiler for me to say we're getting a Darkseid. I mean, it's War of the Undead Gods, and we got Darkseid on the main cover. Which I guess be careful what you wish for, Darkseid. He always wanted to control the anti-life equation. Well, I guess he's getting it in a different way than he wanted. So what do you think?
Well, I love this. I love Deceased, and I feel that I actually if I have a wish for you, it's that you go back and you read those issues, because I think you would really have enjoyed them. You get the substance of it, but the emotional moments that Tom Taylor mastered in that initial series of Deceased, those moments, those final moments as Superman basically says goodbye to John Kent and Lois Lane. I mean, typical Tom Taylor, nailing those emotional moments here. Darkseid, of course, being taken over by sort of almost like an undead anti-life equation, and
yeah,
Superman,
that black and white cover, that Jay Anceletto cover that you have up right there is unbelievable. It's an homage, if you don't realize, it's an homage, everybody, to Action Comics 252, which is the first appearance of Supergirl, where she comes out of the capsule.
Yeah, it is. It almost, the proportions seem a little bit wonky in some parts of it, but it's because it's kind of like a zombie idea. It's kind of cool, and also just as a build on that cover, it's a good segue. I love how Tom Taylor plays with the continuity, because this is obviously its own continuity. Deceased is its own continuity in a different universe. I love the fact that in this universe, Supergirl hasn't come to Earth yet, but when she does, her timing couldn't be worse. Supergirl's origins, she finally makes it to Earth, but this is after the undead, the deceased, have taken over the Earth, and she is.
Well, she doesn't get sent there. She gets sent to New Genesis.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. And she ends up being, of course, basically taken over by the gods of New Genesis. And undoubtedly, Supergirl, I mean, I think that's going to be probably one of the, leave it to Tom Taylor again, the emotional highlights of this series. It's called War of the Undead Gods, obviously referring to the gods of New Genesis, and of course the gods of Apocalypse, Darkseid and his minions. And the fact that Supergirl, the goal will undoubtedly be throughout the series, I would imagine it's a safe bet to say that since they managed to get Kal-el cured of the sort of like the undead virus, that they want to do the same thing for Supergirl, and that will be the central goal of the entire series. I love the relationship between the new Trinity is amazing. I love the rapport. This is the adult Super Sons done right that we all love. It's the Damian, John Kent, and Cassie Sensmark as the new Trinity, and the rapport is done so well here. How they rescue Kal-el out of the sun, where he ended up basically feeding himself at the end of the first Deceased series, and the new meeting, I guess the reunification of Lois Lane, and the reunion of Lois Lane and of course Clark. Just again, everything here is done so right. I love. I've grown the Hairsine's art has grown on me. I think it works very well. I think this is my favorite. I like this more than the Tinian and Rosenberg's efforts on the vampire. What is that? Just reviewed it last week. It's not bad, but this is
DC versus vampires.
Thank you. DC versus vampires. DC versus vampires. I actually have a renewed love for as of last week. I was getting tired of it, but last week it intrigued me again. But Deceased, I haven't gotten sick of it. I've enjoyed it more and more every time I've read it, and I'm looking forward to more. So good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Okay, well, we talked about Harley Quinn 18. Harley Quinn is weekly right now with celebrating her 30th anniversary, and there are some really cool homage covers. On 18, there was an homage to Detective Comics 27. This one's got an homage cover to the first appearance of Robin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Can't remember I think it's Batman number 9 that Robin first appeared in. I could be wrong, but anyway, it's Harley Quinn in space. It's a heck of a lot of fun. This is still being written by Stephanie Phillips. We've got let me find the credits. I had it, and then
Credits page
to the cover. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, George Duarte is the artist. Romulo Fajardo Jr. on colors and world design on letters. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially with Harley breaking the fourth wall, talking to us. This might be the most fun I've had reading it, because it's almost like the humor that Stephanie Phillips is putting in the book. It's not the zany, wacky humor of Harley that I don't really care that much for. It's more of the snarky, kind of smart alecky Harley Quinn, where the humor is a little more highbrow, and I really appreciated it. I did find it a little strange. Now, granted, Luke Fox is the one that's funding this mission to this moon base, this old JLL Watchtower moon base, which makes a lot of sense. You know, the Justice League is missing, so I appreciate that it ties into the DCU. It's just weird to have character moments between Luke Fox and Lucius Fox in a Harley Quinn comic of all books. And we have I Am Batman, we have the other Bat titles. It was a little strange. Not that I minded it, because I thought it was good character work. So overall, I'm really enjoying this. I liked after the first issue of Harley Quinn in Space, I gotta admit I was a little worried that it wasn't gonna work for me, but the second issue really hooked me. I really enjoyed it. So and I especially loved just the feel that Stephanie Phillips is bringing with Harley narrating, and she's making references to other like really famous, well-known sci-fi stories and movies like Alien and whatnot. And I just really appreciated that feel. Harley being kind of meta. So it really worked for me. The George Duarte art, I think, works for me as well. It's a good balance between, more realistic style, a less stylized art style than we got from Riley Rosmo, but it's still cartoony enough to work on a Harley Quinn book. So
Yeah.
what do you think?
I actually, just to repeat some of the comments I made in the last week, where I was giving commentary by myself while you were sitting on a beach sipping Mai Tais. I almost did. I still have a hard time adjusting to Verdict being here, because she looks the artistic style is so different than Riley Rosmo. This really does feel like a very, very different Harley Quinn book. And in that sense, it's refreshing. And that's not, as I said last week, that's not an insult to Riley Rosmo. He's got his own style. But this actually does feel different. I love the fact that she's in space, because it is so completely different. They want to go to the moon base. Luke Fox, there's Element X there. So Stephanie Phillips is being very creative here. Some of the continuity is a little wonky, but let's face it, the Teen Titans are off the playing field. The Justice League are dead. There's Element X from the Dark Universe, and it's might be, it's important that they get it off the abandoned JLA moon base. So there's some semblance of a plot there, but at the same time, this is a very eclectic. This is basically Stephanie Phillips writing a Suicide Squad story under the guise of a Harley Quinn story. That's what this really is. I mean, I don't know why they're calling it Task Force XX. I don't know what the double X really refers to, but there is fun to be had here. And I actually think that it's odd. You mentioned the humor. I found that the humor here lands better. Maybe it's almost if, I don't know how to, I probably don't articulate this very well, but I feel that she's not trying so hard with the humor. It lands a little better in these first two issues in this new story arc. I actually kind of enjoy it. And I also found that because it's weekly, I question whether or not they really need to do it weekly, but I'm kind of glad because I actually kind of remember what happened last week. So um I hope this gets, I hope more people are picking this up because I'm enjoying this a little bit more. And I got to admit that just the difference that an artist can make in terms of, I question, just it's such a stylistic change that this really worked for me. And I really like the cliffhanger here. And I'm not, I've already cheated. I will admit I've already read to the end of this story arc. I'm not going to say this is some huge revelatory must read Harley story, but if you're a Harley Quinn fan, I think you'll want to read this because it's a lot of fun. I really like the inclusion of Luke Fox. There's even a great scene between Luke Fox and his father, Lucius Fox. Luke Fox is doing something very different with his money, with his share of the money than Jace Fox is in New York City as Batman. And we'll be reviewing I Am Batman here. So this further distinguishes Luke Fox from his other members of his family, and all to good effect. And I kind of like it. Luke Fox maybe doing something a little bit more eclectic with his time and working with Harley. I think there's some fun to be had here, and I hope people give it, check it out. I'm not going to say it's a must read for this week. Again, I would say it's probably my third. I'd rank it third this week, but all in all, I'm enjoying the ride with Harley a little bit more than I have in the past few months.
Yeah, I have not read ahead, but I mean, my guess is, haven't we been told that Harley Quinn's going to die before the end of the year?
Well,
We have the death of Harley Quinn, so I mean.
I'm not gonna say anything. I won't ruin anything. But.
Well, no. And again, I haven't read ahead, so I can speculate. But yeah, I mean, my expectation is that she dies while she's out here in space. I mean, she doesn't have superpowers, and I've talked about it in the past. At times, I've had some issues with the way she's been portrayed, especially in the Heroes in Crisis story, where she took out Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. I don't care what level of gymnast supposedly she was a gymnast in college and an Olympic alternate and whatever. I don't care. You're not taking out, if you're Harley Quinn, you're not taking out Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. That's just not happening.
Yeah.
But whatever. So yeah, if she's in space, this is where I expect her to buy the big one. But knowing Stephanie Phillips, it'll at least be a fun ride. So anyway, let's move on. Dark Crisis Worlds Without a Justice League. We're up to Green Lantern. This is John Stewart, Green Lantern, obviously the one that's dead. Written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. Fernando Blanco is the artist. Jordi Valera on colors. Troy Petrie on letters. And then there is a backup with Kendra Saunders. Yeah, Hawkgirl. And this one is written by good friend of the show, Jeremy Adams. Jack Herbert is the artist. Alex Guarmas does colors. Troy Petrie on letters. What do you think about this one?
You know what? I think that it would behoove everyone to read the, there's an opening sort of introduction to this world without a Justice League. The League has fallen in an epic battle against the Mad Pariah's dark army. Earth's defenders sacrifice themselves to save the universe. Now Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, John Stewart, Hawkgirl, Zatanna, Green Arrow, and Black Canary are dead, or are they? Needing power to fuel his deadly machinations, Pariah has imprisoned the essence of each Justice League member on custom-made worlds using his ever-growing dark abilities. Each world has been created from the innermost hopes of the Justice League. And what Pariah intends to do with the worlds is a mystery. So what's interesting is that if we take that at face value, that all these worlds, the world that Tom King had, Superman on, somehow it was a combination of Superman's innermost needs, but it was also manipulated by Pariah. And I think that's very important for those of us reading this to keep in mind, that this isn't just about the innermost needs and wants and desires of the Justice League members in these various issues, but Pariah is also manipulating what they're experiencing, because a lot of the criticisms that I know flowed with the Superman issue by Tom King was, well, I mean, you could criticize it saying, well, John Kent wouldn't do that, or Superman wouldn't do this, and there was various comments that it was a little bit darker than some people would like, but we can't forget that this Pariah's having a role in this as well. And so you got to keep that in mind, I think, when you read this Green Lantern issue. Now, I like this Green Lantern issue. It has to do with John Stewart. He's in a world, obviously, without a Justice League. And in his sort of like dream world here, he's actually, he's relaxing and he's living his dream life. He's got his daughter there, and he looks like his mother, and he's living a great life. And then he gets a distress call from other members of the Green Lantern Corps that are basically being attacked by this entity that, and he's being communicated through his daughter. And apparently, oddly enough, I don't know. I got to be honest. I'm not really sure how. I have a hard time imagining that this story represents John Stewart's greatest dream. So I almost feel like there has to be some pariah manipulation going on when we get into reviewing Hawkgirl's greatest dream or essence. I mean, Pariah is definitely manipulating aspects in that story in my mind, given what I know of Kendra Saunders' background. She even looks different. But in any event, I thought this was really good as a Green Lantern story, is that it focused on John Stewart's background as a Marine. His background as a Marine, his character set, his personality. I thought it did a really good job in that respect. And I like the fact that it focused on that he's also an architect, that when he retired, he could explore being an architect. And so as a Marine, he achieved great status as being one of the greatest Green Lanterns ever. And that's flowing a little bit from Geoffrey Thorne's run as well. And so this is a John Stewart who's at his A game. He's revered by other members of the Green Lantern Corps, and he's called upon in the Green Lantern's moment of the greatest need. And he helps defeat this sort of baby looking man bat Omega creature that I'm assuming is related to Darkseid because it has an Omega symbol on it. And ultimately, he with the help of the other members of the Green Lantern Corps, he defeats the enemy. He goes back, and it ends up that his daughter he's actually created. He actually brought the daughter back to life, who's the embodiment of the central power battery, and he's basically sort of resurrected his own daughter.
Yeah, it's his sister.
Pardon me, his sister. Thank you.
Yeah,
and he's resurrected his sister, and I mean it's a nice story, and she's kept alive. She's not really alive. She's kind of a construct and in the embodiment of the central power battery. I'm not really sure how that, it's weird. It's different. I got to wonder if this is John Stewart's dream. It really throws me off. Philip Kennedy Johnson is the writer on this one. Fernando Blanco on the art's fantastic. I'm really curious as to know specifically. I know Joshua Williamson stated in interviews that he did give some flexibility and leeway to Tom King, to Philip Kennedy Johnson, and to other writers who are writing these various stories on terms of the dreams of the Justice League members. And but I got to admit, it's a little bit baffling to me exactly how Pariah is going to utilize. Is there something story specific in this Green Lantern story, and in the one in Superman, and in the one we're going to review in Hawkgirl coming up here as the backup? How is that, or how is it all related? Or maybe it isn't, but the jury's kind of still out. I like the story. I like what Philip Kennedy Johnson's got a really good handle on John Stewart. I like the story for what it was. John Stewart's pretty cool here. I thought I felt more respect for John Stewart here than I even did it's a good follow-up to Geoffrey Thorne's run, 12-issue run. So what do you think of the Green Lantern story?
Yeah, I thought it was just kind of average. In terms of, it is a bit of a throwback. The whole idea of John Stewart as an architect. That's the John Stewart I know. He was never a Marine when he was first created. That was a post-crisis thing. And he was a little bit of a cliche. He was a little bit of the kind of tropey angry black man, and a lot of that anger did have to do with the death of his sister. So for me, it kind of rang true that, if he's looking for some sort of, paradise, it would be kind of an idyllic existence, living on a farm with his mother and his daughter, or his mother and his sister being there. So that felt very authentic to me. But other than that, yeah, it did feel a little bit like the hero worship that we got from Geoffrey Thorne for John Stewart, which in this case, it actually works, right? Because that's the whole point.
Exactly. Yeah.
John Stewart wants to matter. He wants to be a hero. And so on that level, it works here better than it worked for me anyway, in Geoffrey Thorne's run. I much more enjoyed the backup story from Jeremy Adams. I do agree with you in both instances about whether or not, and I said the same thing. It was that hesitation about what Superman would have wanted. Yes, he'd want those years back, but would he want to live in a universe where Darkseid was taking over everything? We talked about that, and I was kind of pushing back on whether or not that's what was really going on. Turns out you were right, I was wrong. It is Pariah, trapping these heroes in happiness prisons, as he has referred to them. But yeah, he's clearly manipulating, because I just think that Kendra Saunders is too heroic to want to give up her ability to do good by reincarnating over centuries to always come back and being able to fight the good fight. She just doesn't seem like that type of selfish person that would turn around and say, I don't want to, like, I understand. And I thought it was an interesting take for Jeremy Adams to take, to say, hey, if you have no chance of dying, then life stop, the shine is gone, right? It's not special anymore. And I get that. But again, you're reducing the heroism that's inherent in Kendra Saunders. So yeah, clearly, like you said, Pariah is manipulating things. So all in all, an average issue for me. But curious to see how Dark Crisis is, the story is starting to build out, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Just some my own comments on the Hawkgirl issue is, I do find it interesting that Kendra Saunders, she's got a completely different hairstyle. She looks completely different. She doesn't look the Kendra Saunders that we know. That's not a big deal. Her costume is completely different. And one of her dreams, apparently, and you alluded to it, is she's glad that she got rid of these past lives, and that these past lives, she feels like we're an albatross, and she feels so relieved when she finally obtains mortality by touching this mortality vase that she touches, and that the memories of all her past lives are gone, and she can finally be mortal again. I never saw that as one of Kendra Saunders' dreams. And if I don't know where Jeremy Adams is getting that. To be honest, but I will say this: I wouldn't be surprised if I'm just wrong. Maybe Jeremy Adams usually does his research, so maybe in the past, I know Kendra Saunders has expressed some frustrations with having past lives, in the Justice League run by Scott Snyder. But I just thought this was sort of an odd sort of take on it, and it didn't really sit really well with me. All of these things are a little bit off, but the good thing about it feeling a little bit off is that Pariah is having an influence here, and Pariah he even has a devious laugh on the final page where he's laughing. So he's having fun, sort of like tormenting the members of the Justice League. And so I think that we as readers, we have to remember that, even if we don't agree with these sort of dream sequences or these happy places that the Justice League is in, I think we can't forget that Pariah is playing with them and is having some influence as well. And so I think that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, up next we have I Am Batman number 12. This is written by John Ridley. Christian Duce is the artist, Rex Locust on colors, Troy Petrie on letters. The Right Question. We get to see Renee Montoya and Jace Fox team up. They're investigating. They're trying to figure out, what's going on, who killed Anarchy, who is kind of the power behind this movement, and why was he traveling back and forth between Gotham? What's the link between Gotham and New York City? Does that link have something to do with the Question, Renee Montoya being in both places? And then interspersed among that story is we get a lot of Tiffany Fox, who, again, she looked so much older when we first saw her in the I Am Batman, and now she's very young, and she's struggling to find her place now that her family has money, and she wants to make a difference, but how can she do that? So it's a good balance between the Batman action and some Fox family drama from John Ridley. So, it's starting to sound like a broken record when I talk about this book, but ever since John Ridley took Jace Fox out of New York, this book's been firing on all cylinders. Just a really interesting take. If I have any complaint about this particular issue, we don't get much Jace Fox characterization, but that's kind of sacrificed for character growth from Tiffany, and I'm okay with that. So again, I'll leave the whole continuity, whatever's going on with Renee Montoya, New York, Gotham City, I'll leave that alone completely. The Christian Duce art is spectacular. I will say that the colors are a little brighter, it seemed to me, in this issue than we've had previously from Rex Locus, but maybe it's just because we have some scenes that are actually during the day. So all in all, it's a beautiful book, and I think everybody should be reading this. Notwithstanding my reservations about having two characters name the same thing, whether that's Spider-Man or Batman. Can we just give everybody their own unique name already? But yeah, I am enjoying this. So what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I wish if only John Ridley was firing on all cylinders coming out of Future State. I think this would be a must read for everyone, because I think a lot of people gave up on Jace Fox's Batman prior to this series even beginning, just because of the editorial ups and downs of DC Comics through AT&T and all that other nonsense. And it's unfortunate, because I think this really works. I'm really enjoying this Batman. This is just and I love Jace Fox. Feels like his own Batman here. Jace Fox is kind of a hard ass. He's not very diplomatic here. In fact, kudos to the Question, Renee Montoya. What this tells me, as a quick aside, Renee Montoya is the Question. Forget about her being commissioner of Gotham. Renee Montoya, quit your job as commissioner. DC, listen up. We want Renee Montoya as the Question. She's evolved past being a cop, past being involved with the PD departments. Enough already. But in any event, I really like her as the Question. She really showed her skill set here when she talked down at one of the they talked to a young man who shot Anarchy, and Jace took notice of the fact that Renee Montoya was quite good at talking down the young man who had a gun on them, and he was one of the kids that had fled Gotham and was now living in New York City. He was one of the ones that shot Anarchy, although he never made the killing shot. Jace, if it was up to Jace Fox, Jace is not very diplomatic, and there are things that he's still learning as Batman. That's one thing that John Ridley's done so well here. In when he was up against Man Ray, he clearly got his butt kicked. He had to learn from his mistakes. This is a Batman with flaws at the beginning of his career. He's not even very good at talking to. He hasn't even found his own voice in talking to, whether it's juvenile delinquents or adult criminals. He's learning the ropes, and he's learning the ropes in New York City of all places, in a very different type of setting where he's actually working with the police department that half of which don't particularly like him, and he's dealing with the same level of corruption. And in the midst of all this, we've got Renee Montoya helping him out, getting to the bottom of this Anarchy investigation. What was the real cause of his death? The development of the Jace Fox family. I think the Jace Fox family is quickly becoming, and you were very critical of it, and you had some very valid points early on with Future State that, you weren't really feeling it. But I think over the last year and a half, one of the things that's slowly been organically developing with hills and valleys has been the character portrayal of the Fox family. I think it's gotten better and better. And here with Tiffany Fox is just, her struggle, her desire to want to be a hero, to want to fit in, to make a difference, and talking with her mother, who's got some resentments toward Batman as it is. And there's a lot of story here. And Lucius Fox, we saw Luke Fox in the pages of Harley Quinn. The Fox family is really gaining prominence in the DC universe in a really good way, that even if you're not maybe fans of the stories they're in now, they're being positioned that they're always there to be in the midst of a potentially really good story, depending on the writer. So again, I think I'm liking this Jace Fox Batman. I mean, I think this is a one of the better reads this week in my mind.
Yeah, I'm really curious, and that's why I'm kind of anxious to get to the end of Dark Crisis. Like, are we going to have another reset will that mean Alfred comes back? Will that mean Bruce gets his fortune back? What happens to the Fox family if they're not, billionaires? Do they still count? So
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. All right, up next we have Naomi, season 2, number 6, final issue of the series. Brian Michael Bendis and David F. Walker are the writers. Jamal Campbell does the art and cover. Wes Abbott on letters. What'd you think?
Well, my comments are the same as it was before, and this issue starts off. I mean, and I'm mindful of your scolding comments to me a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Jace, where you said, well, geez, you know how Bendis writes, so if you don't like it, maybe don't read it. But of course, we're reviewing it. But so I'll cut Bendis some slack. But it's the same narrative tropes. I mean, this issue starts off with all these, with various players and various citizens who are observing the battle, sort of giving you a synopsis of what's gone on, and I guess it works. We got all the villains or all the players from Naomi's homeworld finally made it to Earth. The Justice League, of course, they're off limits. I guess they're dead because this takes place. There was some continuity wonkiness, but the Justice League are off the playing field. So it's literally Naomi against sort of like this league of villains from her home world. And essentially, this issue is a lot of dialogue, a lot of absolutely beautiful art. I mean, beautiful art by Jamal Campbell, and beautiful colors. But at the end of the day, it just ends with Naomi winning and basically pushing them back into their world, where she, she manages to defeat them. And I got to correct myself. The Justice League are not dead. This is before the death of the Justice League, because they show up at the end. So that just goes to show what I know. I gotta watch what I say. But the Justice League, they show up late. Incredibly, that huge battle takes place, and the Justice League shows up at the end of it after it's all done. Naomi proves herself. She kicks ass. I'm still a little bit confused exactly what her power set is. She's got some really good moments with her friends. So there's friendship and bonding moments, but I personally found it all kind of unsatisfying. But at the same time, it focuses more on Naomi's relationship with her parents and Naomi herself. I can definitely see a particular crowd that would really, really like this. But I just wanted more action. I wanted more answers, more action. I wanted her to be in the home. I wanted far, far more excitement in terms of, and far more discovery of her fighting on our Earth, on their Earth. And I realize it's only 6 issues, but there was just, I guess I'm just expecting something different. And I realized that in order to do that, it'll just have to be from a different writer, because I just find this to be, I found this to be ultimately predictable and boring. Beautiful visuals, but boring. And because we don't know really anything more about Naomi than we did at the end of her first series, except the only difference now is that we had her fight off an attack by herself, except without the help of the Justice League. So now we know that Naomi has more confidence, and that it basically ends with her, taking off, going to explore her own homeworld. And that will presumably be volume 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, where she's exploring her original homeworld. And so this is going to be very, very slow going. And maybe that, this is Bendis's baby. That's the way this is going to go. This is a very slow moving story. But there might be some rewards that come with developing a story like that as well, because this is definitely more dialogue and plotting and character based. But it's just fair to say that it's not my particular cup of tea in regard to how I like to see a comic book paced. But a beautiful art.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say. I wish I could say I disagree. I tried to defend this, as much as I could. And I talked to Brian. He basically told me, yeah, this 6 issues was going to really explore the relationship between Naomi and his parents, and her parents. And on that level, it certainly works. But to your point, and we've talked about this before, a character that's been around as long as she has, it's been kind of wonky. At first, I thought that this series was taking place right after the first one ended. Turns out, no, it's taking place after her appearances in the Justice League run that Bendis did. And so, yeah, just the pacing, it's just going way too slow. So I can understand wanting to establish what the relationship between Naomi and her parents is like, and giving that context. But, to your point, we don't even know who Naomi is or what her powers really are yet. And on that point, we find out halfway through here that her powers change. Finds out from her auntie that lives in the other world that her next power, now your next powers are manifesting. Like, man, we didn't even get a handle on what her first power set is, and she's already getting a second power set. Like, it's a little bit, I don't want to say confusing. It just feels like there's parts missing. Like they didn't maybe necessarily have enough room, enough real estate, enough space on the page, because we do get really big panels, which when it's Jamal Campbell doing the art and the colors, you want big panels. You want to be able to see the detail. You want to be able to see all, the wonderful artwork and line work that he does. So I get that, but you're sacrificing, storytelling space. And so it ends up, like you said, feeling not only predictable, but a little bit boring, because we're missing like crucial parts of the story where, like, if you want me to care about a superhero, like I need to know what their powers are, at the very least. And we've never gotten a good handle on what those powers are. Now, what I will say, what I did enjoy is I did like the ending, even though it was rather predictable that Naomi saved the day. I do like this idea of her off exploring her, original homeworld on her own without any backup, because that's where she can really find out who she is. Yeah. Now, as much as I love Jamal Campbell on this book, maybe it's time for another artist to come in who doesn't need, as much space on the page to tell the story, where we can get, a little more bang for our buck. And if that means it's got to be somebody other than Bendis doing it, David Walker, then maybe that's the case. But unfortunately, I think probably the deal that Bendis signed with DC, he probably has, right of first refusal, but I don't know that for sure. Maybe DC could put somebody else on Naomi. Whether that would work or not, I don't know. But ultimately, I ended up being a little bit underwhelmed after loving the first volume. I just thought this volume was okay. I thought the first 3 issues were strong, but the last 3 issues were just average, because again, like Rocky said, that it fell into kind of paint by the numbers, where you kind of knew what was going to happen before it happened. And just, not enough space to really let the character shine. Like, we still don't know, like, why does Naomi's symbol, why is the symbol on her chest the White Lantern symbol?
I don't know. I've always been a little confused at that. And to be honest with you, I've never really explored and really sought the answer to that question. And I seem to recall that I don't even know if it's supposed to be. I think, isn't that just, I always thought that it was a coincidence.
That's a big coincidence.
But
yeah,
okay.
Maybe somebody in the comments can tell us what we're missing. So anyway, up next we have Future State Gotham number 16, Batmen at War, Part 4, Imposter Syndrome, written by Dennis Culver. Art is by Jaffo, covered by Simone DeMeo. There's no colors, lettered by Troy Petrie. There's no colorist. Black and white comic. I won't belabor that point. We've talked about it before. There are a heck of a lot of Batmen in here. We've got Hush being Batman. We've got Nightwing being Batman. We've got Bruce Wayne back being Batman. We've got Damian Wayne being Batman 666 back from hell. So there's a whole heck of a lot of Batmen, and they're starting to be whittled down. But it almost seems like Nightwing they're moving him over from being the hero. Like, poor Dick Grayson, man. The guy gets shot in the head by KG Beast, loses his memory, becomes Rick Grayson. Everybody is up in arms, fans as well as the actual characters in DCU. And then he gets his memory back and everybody celebrates, and it's the Dick Grayson we all know and love, and he embodies what heroism is in the DCU. And then they make him the king of the vampires in DC versus Vampires. He's targeted for assassination in his own book. by Blockbuster, and now in the pages of Future State Gotham, he's become like this anti-hero, almost villain guy who says, only I can be Batman. No one else can be Batman. No one else should even be out here on the streets of Gotham wearing a mask. Do what the magistrate tells you. I know everything because I took Brain, which is the mental equivalent of the Venom. What Venom does for your physical body, this Brain does for your mind. And so he can predict the future and knows all. And all the Bat family dies unless they stop being the Bat family, and only Nightwing can continue and be Batman. And like, he's actively fighting against the other members of the Bat family here. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
Who's the bad guy? Like, who's the good guy? Who are we supposed to be cheering for?
So Hush,
I don't know.
Hush is has become the big bad in the series, and he had plastic surgery, so he now looks like Bruce Wayne as well. But also you could say that Damian Wayne, Batman 666 from Hell, is the bad guy. Like, there's no real. I mean, in that way, I'm sort of thinking this is exactly what DC wants. They want a book that's very manga-like in terms of there's not really a good guy, there's not really a bad guy, there's no color, it's black and white, it's got this Asian influenced art. I think this book is filling exactly the role that they want it to fill. But for somebody like me, who's not a big manga fan, I haven't read a lot of manga in my life. This book has just been wildly inconsistent. It's gone up and down. Like, at times I'm like, okay, I see where they're going. I'm enjoying this. And there's times like this issue where I'm just like, it feels like they're throwing everything at the wall to try to see what sticks. But it's not super interesting to me.
Yeah.
It feels like they're trying to force a round peg into a square hole. So, I mean, it's okay. I'm continuing to read it. I will say that I do prefer the Joffo art to the Giannis Milano Giannis art. But yeah, it's only okay for me. There is a Batman black and white story, and at least it's one from way back by Cyrus Voris and Chris Bachalo. That's okay. But again, I'm not. Just stop with the backups already and charge $1 less. You're already not giving us colors for $4.99. Just make it $3.99 and take the backups out. So anyway, any thoughts on it?
Well, as far as the backup, I have that backup story. What a mess. I have no idea what the hell that story was. I honestly, I read it 3 times and I have no idea. I actually read it because I was so intrigued by the fact that it didn't make sense the first time I read it. So I figured, well, then it didn't make sense the second time I read it. And now I completely gave up the third time. Like, I'm baffled by it, but I mean, I guess decent enough art, but I don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm so baffled by this. The nicest thing I can say about the main story is the art by Jeffo. He goes out of his way, because there's so damn many Batman, that it forces the artist to give ridiculous costumes to all of them to distinguish them apart, because otherwise a doughhead like me couldn't tell them apart.
Well, especially because they're all black and white. You can't even use
that's
color.
what I mean. Like, you know what reading this makes me realize more than ever is just how much I appreciate colorists. If you're a Batman reader and you've read Batman your whole life, if you want to have a new appreciation for the God love the colorists out there, this makes me have a new appreciation for coloring, because wow, I was still confused, but I mean, fortunately, Nightwing here drawn as Batman. I mean, he claims to be Batman, although he kind of has a Nightwing look to him. I think he looks ridiculous with the point. Like, but I mean, it's almost like again, Joffo, the artist, whatever, had to basically do that to distinguish the characters.
He reminds me. Yeah, it reminds me of those paper Burger King crowns that you give as a little kid. That's what it reminds. He's got the Batman equivalent of a Burger King paper crown.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous. Like, it just, and not only that, I mean, aside from looking ridiculous, I mean, this is supposed to be Future State. Now, most of us have totally forgotten and forget about Future State. We want to forget it because it wasn't that great a storyline. And then I'm wondering, these are a bunch of Batman fighting over a mantle, but meanwhile, aren't you supposed to be fighting for the people? Like I thought Future State Gotham was terrible for the people. Like these are a bunch of white men jerking off, circle jerking over who gets to be the Dark Knight. This is ridiculous. And then Barber's in there for good measure, along with that other crazy. I don't get it. Like it's like this is like watching 5 or 6 bald men fight over a comb. Like, who cares? I mean, I don't care which one ends up as Batman. Does it matter? It's Future State. Like but anyways, I've vented like that before. But anyways, I keep waiting. I don't know why this series hasn't been canceled. I'll be very blunt, but it keeps coming out, and it's like clearly it's got the cheapest budget. They don't have a colorist. That must be why they keep publishing it. I don't know, but I
think it sells pretty well. I really do.
I'm sad to report, in my mind, you're right. It does actually sell higher than a surprising number of DC comics. And I guess maybe that's just a sign of the times. I'm getting old, and I got to embrace more of a manga type of comic book. I did read and review my first manga comic book, Chainsaw Man, the other day, and I enjoyed it. So who knows? Maybe this will start something. But I just can't see myself embracing this type of at least when I read Chainsaw Man, there was only one Chainsaw Man, not 5.
Fair enough. All right, up next we have Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, number 3. Can't believe we're already on the 3rd issue of the series. Written by Stephanie Williams. Aletha Martinez is the penciler. Mark Morales and John Livesey with Aletha Martinez on inks. Alex Gormas on colors, and Becca Carey on letters. What do you think about this?
I knew you were going to make me go first. It's like, oh man, I got to look. I'm going to try to, I just, oh man, I'm just not, I'm not feeling this. I don't really get this whole, let me try to put the most positive spin on this that I can. Nubia, writer Stephanie Williams, the best thing I can say about her writing is that she very clearly is passionate about Nubia, and she wants to prop up the queen, Nubia. And Nubia is queen, but it's quite clear that Nubia doesn't, if she wants to be queen, she's certainly not acting like one. She wants to do everything but be queen. I mean, I think Queen Nubia is having a hard time distinguishing between, look, if you're a queen, you have a Wonder Woman, you have an Artemis, you've got numerous Wonder Girls. I mean, send them out to do your errands for you. You're not supposed to do it yourselves, but that's not what Queen Nubia wants to do. I get it, but it seems a little bit off, but that's a side criticism there. I mean, Wonder Woman's done that too in the New 52. She was both queen, and she ran off and did her Justice League gallivanting. So yeah, cut her some slack there. So I shouldn't be a hypocrite there. I like the origin here. I like that she meets Queen Nubia in one of her past lives. In her original life, Queen Nubia was this character called Princess Zahava, and she was ultimately killed in Madagascar long ago, and she was murdered, and she eventually came, and her soul rose up through the Well of Souls on Paradise Island, where she was the first abused woman on Man's World to be resurrected through the Well of Souls on Paradise Island, and ultimately, of course, became Nubia, and then ultimately Queen Nubia. And one of her, she ends up meeting this Zyla character, who ends up being this Zila character was her, I guess, her daughter in a past life.
I don't know if it was her daughter. Definitely, she was a mentor for her.
Mentor or something. Yeah. And apparently this, am I saying that right? Zila or Zilla?
Zilla, yeah.
Zilla, she's still alive, and through an extraordinary set of coincidences, Zilla happens to be the one woman she happens to be battling, because Nubia decides to go off to Africa to combat climate change or something, and ends up this amulet that she has. She's got half this amulet that apparently is some sort of power source that, lo and behold, out of nowhere, Zilla just shows up, and basically they have this long protracted conversation, and while they're fighting, which is at least good. Stephanie Williams has gotten better, because in her first Nubia series, her limited series, Nubia would just have the Amazons talk and don't do any fighting. We would get conversation after conversation after conversation. But at least here, when they're talking, we're getting some dialogue in the midst of some pretty cool action scenes that are, I think, are just beautifully rendered by artist Aletha Martinez. So I like the art. I like the flashback sequences. I'm just questioning where it's all going to go, because Zilla ends up taking the half the amulet, and where she's going to go with it, I'm not sure. Wonder Girl here actually Yara Ford gets some action here, and actually it gets her ass handed to her in a few places, but it's actually not bad. It's one of Stephanie Williams' better issues, to be honest with you. It just feels like it doesn't feel like it's really going anywhere, because now Nubia is going to follow Zilla around the globe because apparently there's this god that's going to be resurrected when they put the two amulets together, and Zilla wants to obtain the power of this god. So there's a semblance of a story here that's brewing, but I'm not really sure if I'm feeling the stakes. It feels a little bit, it feels kind of disjointed, and it still feels too dialogue heavy. But it is better. I think it is better, and there's more action than in her first series. So Stephanie Williams, I am seeing some improvement in her pacing and in her structure, and the art continues to be really good for this series. It isn't really, I'd still like a little bit more. I wish the plot was just more I wish it was more exciting. It never feels like, even through Trial of the Amazons, it never felt exciting enough to me, and even the action here, the action was just as a backdrop, because it was just to back up a conversation where we got some much needed information. So that was good, but it was clearly fighting for the sake of fighting, because otherwise there'd be no action in the issue. So it felt, I know it's a comic book, and that's common for a comic book, but I do wish, I'm not sure where this is going, but it doesn't really feel like there's a lot at stakes. And I just wish the stakes were higher. And this Zilla character, it just sort of feels like this Zilla character is sort of like a carbon copy of the equivalent of what Diana is to Queen Hippolyta. She's gonna but I guess that's interesting. We're getting more diversity in the Themyscira, diversity in the Wonder Woman mythology. This Zilla character, she's Yara Flora referred to her as a James Bond type of villain, and Zilla said, I'm better. So it's all well and good. What this series needs is an actual villain that isn't going to be redeemed, a real badass, and somebody that's not interested in being shown mercy and supplication and all this other nonsense. But I don't think that where this is going, but I don't know. How do you feel about it, Jace?
Yeah, I don't disagree. This is probably my least favorite issue of the series so far. And I get that it's an Amazonian book, and so it's going to be political. I go back to Stephanie Williams, when we first got the backup of Nubia and how much action there was in that. And so, yeah, I feel like she hasn't quite gotten the hang of balancing the action with the dialogue yet. Because, yeah, this was really dialogue heavy. And I get that you're trying to establish stakes. And, to your point about Nubia needing to stay on the island as queen, like I totally agree with you. Maybe that's the lesson that Stephanie Williams is about to teach Nubia. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's just, her passion for the character, like you said, very much comes through, but you used the word disjointed. I think that's the best word to use to describe the series so far. It's just been sort of uneven. It's not bad, and you can see the potential there, certainly, but it's felt disjointed at times, and I'm just kind of waiting for Stephanie Williams to kind of hit her stride. The saving grace is Aletha Martinez has been working with her the entire time that she's been doing Nubia, and the art has been fantastic throughout. So maybe when it's all said and done and we read the whole thing, it'll balance out better, because we'll get some issues with less dialogue. As one of the things you can say in terms of comic value, you're never going to pick up Nubia Stephanie Williams comic and not, spend some time with it because it takes a while to get through because there's always so much dialogue. So, hasn't quite hit its stride yet, but I'm still hopeful. All right, up next we have Superman, Son of Kal-el, number 14 from Tom Taylor. Art is by Cian Tormey, colors by Federico Blee, letters by Dave Sharp. This was a heck of a lot of fun. Had a little bit of a heist feel in it when basically Lois Lane exposes through the Truth Network that she has agreed to join. She's exposed Bendis and what he's been up to with proof. And so Bendis is kind of backed into a corner. And so he raises this storm shield, this energy shield over the island of Gamora to basically prevent anybody from coming after him, which leads John Kent to take his boyfriend Jay and drop him from very, very high up with his intangibility powers to kind of break through. So that was a fun moment. Again, a little bit of a heist feel to it. And he's able to take down the shield. Now, Jay himself doesn't take down the shield, but it's a great character moment for Gamora as an island and the citizens. He shows up in the lab where the button is to turn the shield off. And he's kind of in a catch-22. If he makes himself tangible so he can actually press the button to turn the shield off, first of all, they could just turn it right back on. Second of all, he's making himself vulnerable. So I love it. He appeals to them. He's like, look, I'm here. We're going to free Gamora. We're going to get rid of Bendis. I'm asking you to choose between dictator and country. And I love it. One of the scientists turns it off and says, destroy Bendis. It was just a really, really great moment. Like Rocky said earlier, one of the things that Tom Taylor excels at is those character moments, those emotional beats. And that one landed for me really, 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 really well. Unfortunately for Jay, it ends on an emotional moment as well, because even though he's intangible, Dreamer tells John Kent, hey, Jay needs you. And Superman's like, wait, what are you talking about? He's invulnerable. Not to this. And what we see is that Bendis has mutated his mother. She has these really long, it looks almost like insect-like claws, and her jaw has been altered. And yeah, she doesn't look like she's probably even able to recognize Jay as her son. So she's been manipulated. She's been modified. That's got to be hard for Jay to see his mother like that. So quite the cliffhanger to end on. So, we can debate on whether or not this whole Gamora storyline is really what I would want from a Superman story, but I will say it definitely suits the characterization that Tom Taylor has sort of established with John Kent throughout, this more global thinking Superman, this more active Superman, activist Superman, even, if you will. So he certainly has been consistent in his characterization. So I thought, again, the art was by Cian Tormey was really great, and the colors by Federico Blee are bright, as you would expect from the tone that Taylor established. So what do you think?
Well, I think that I reflect back on Tom Taylor's Suicide Squad run, because the revolutionaries here that are joining Truth, the revolutionaries are Tom Taylor's Suicide Squad, really, and they're helping Jay Nakamura and John Kent to attack the island nation of Gamora to basically rescue the people, free the people, and ultimately rescue Jay Nakamura's mother. And I actually really like the dialogue, the character moments as John Kent speaks to the revolutionaries, speaks to the same characters that were in Tom Taylor's Suicide Squad run, who are, many of them, one in particular, are killers. They're killers, but yet you can see that John Kent, like his father, inspires them to embrace the better angels of their nature and to not use lethal force. And I thought that Tom Taylor did a good job with that. Now, one of the things that I've mentioned before, and I've slowly gotten more of an appreciation for, is that it is sort of it's an ongoing nerd controversy or whatever amongst us comic geeks that, Lois Lane becoming a reporter, reporting for Truth, and Truth is affiliated with Jay Nakamura, who's affiliated now with these revolutionaries who used to be affiliated with the Suicide Squad. That's a kind of, you can see that being a disturbing relationship, because you could see, well, they did work for a man, you know, I mean, they were affiliated with the Suicide Squad. So even in any world, you can say, like that's kind of a disturbing political affiliation. But what's interesting here is it's John Kent's, it's his portrayal of Superman coming into his own, where he's inspiring them, where he does give them validity, that his mere presence, even being the son of Superman, I think he does give them some credence there. So my favorite part of the comic book was his conversation with the entire former Suicide Squad. I thought that worked very well, because if he's not going to nail down that relationship, and I'm talking about Chaos Kitten, Osita, and Jog, and TNT, Thylacine, Zebra Man, the Airy, Wink, the Deadly Six, and Finn. These are characters that we've previously seen in Bad Blood Suicide Squad by Tom Taylor. And to see them back here, and these are real badass, hardcore killers when they want to be, most of them anyway. And for John Kent to inspire them to not use lethal force and to maintain that, and we'll see if they can continue that as this moves forward. It'll be interesting to see, especially Osita. And so I actually thought that was the most inspiring part of the issue. And because one of the things that you and I have talked about, Jace, and I know it's been one of your central criticisms early on, is this doesn't feel like Superman. He hasn't earned his place yet. And this is an issue where I'm beginning to see the rumblings of him showing some signs of earning that place, of standing up, of being, instead of just referencing his father, but John Kent himself slowly becoming that beacon of hope that we all want him to be as the son of Kal-el. So I thought it was, again, a continued improvement, because I'm a tough nut to crack, because I still kind of reluctant embracing this John Kent, because I still suffer PTSD over the whole John Kent aged up thing. So
Yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on. We have Wonder Woman number 790 up next. It's the finale of the villainy of our fears. Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan on the script, Emmanuel Lupacchino, Jose Luis and Eduardo Pansica on pencils, Wade Von Grobinger and Julio Ferrer on inks, Tamara Von Villon on colors, and Pat Broso on letters. The last of Dr. Psycho for a while, I would think. What'd you think?
Oh man, well, first of all, a shout out to the cover. I love the cover. It's the Hallmark. It's a callback to Greg Rucka's Haikisha or Haiketia. I'm not sure. I always mispronounce it, but the classic Wonder Woman hardcover by J.G. Jones and writer Greg Rucka. The classic cover has Wonder Woman's boot on Batman's face. In this case, it has Wonder Woman's boot on Dr. Psycho. And this issue, I have to say, there's so much that is, I find so disappointing with this issue for me. I don't even know where to start. But I mean, I'm not sure if it's the fact that it's Etta Candy that defeats half the villainy incorporated all by herself, because they're that incompetent. Professor Calculus, she outwits and is a better mathematical whiz at calculating odds than Mr. Calculus himself. Then she helps Steve Trevor and the other guy whose name I forget defeat Dr. Poison. Both fairly not particularly compelling villains at all, not much of a threat at all. Wonder Woman's an afterthought, really. She's not really needed. She ultimately shows up at the end, and she gives again, once again, Wonder Woman gives a really good speech to Dr. Psycho, who of course is, I mean, his misogyny is just, I mean, it's crazy. And in fairness, Dr. Psycho is a misogynist bastard. Okay, he is. I just find this is really in your face and overplayed here. Let me rephrase that. You can take a character and make them misogynist, but also make them interesting in an evil kind of way. But this Dr. Psycho he's actually a joke. He's a parody. I said this before. He's just not interesting. He's not intelligent. He's not smart. He's just a ranting, raving lunatic. And to make it even worse, at the end, it's discovered that he's actually the big villain behind the scenes is actually Hera, who, I mean, another continuity blunder. Hera's supposed to be dead, killed with the quintessence, but then she came back, and then I thought she was killed in Graveyard of the Gods, but then she was resurrected, and then Hera was defeated by Yara Flor or Cassie Landsmark and Wonder Girl, and now Hera's back, creating machinations against Wonder Woman. Why? I'm not really sure. Why does Hera care? Why does Hera using Villainy Incorporated? Hera's behind creating all these manufacturing plants that are producing this milk. I mean, literally manifest your destiny, and having all these men drink milk to turn them all into misogynists. And what is this the big threat that we need Wonder Woman to combat? Is this part of Hera's evil plan to? Does Hera hate all men? I don't understand why I'm supposed, like, I just don't understand what this is supposed to, what the point of this story is. And then we have this sweetheart character who's from the Image Maker, who Dr. Psycho just uses her as a way to magnify just how much of a jerk he is toward women, calls her sweetheart all the time. And, just he gets to be more of a jerk to her. So just we're constantly reminded how much of a male chauvinist pig Dr. Psycho is. And he ends up killing her, and Wonder Woman, like this is not an A-level threat here. This is something where I don't think Wonder Woman needed to be in this issue. I think I see no reason why Steve Trevor and Ada Kennedy couldn't have defeated all of them all by themselves. Wonder Woman came back to save us from a lurking threat from the multiverse to fight a misogynist. Like, come on. Like, I'm so disappointed in this. And again, the art is great. The art's fantastic. I think it was a little bit creative with Dr. Psycho and utilizing his powers. I mean, visually it works well, but Dr. Psycho is not powerful enough to defeat Wonder Woman. Dr. Poison's not particularly powerful. She's a joke. Professor Calculus is a joke. Everyone here is a joke. And my biggest criticism here is that none of these villains were developed. We didn't get to, Dr. Poison can be a sympathetic character. Delve into her origins, focus on the villains. I mean, tell me something why I should care about Dr. Villain. I mean, Dr. Psycho developed terribly. Image Maker was a one-dimensional character. Dr. Poison's one-dimensional. Dr. Psycho's one-dimensional. We even had the one Dr. Deception. What was he? Deception. The Deception God. It doesn't matter. It's unimportant. This whole thing is so disappointing to me. And then to find out at the end that now we're gonna get her coming back as Diana Prince. I actually kind of like that. I like Diana Prince, but if ever there was a creative team that I wish would just leave the title and not develop anything to do with Diana Prince, it's this one. It's so disappointing here. This whole thing is played like a joke to me, and it just feels there's just no care and attention is played to any of these characters. Not a single character is getting any kind of development or justice in a way that I find compelling. And I just, I'll stop talking now, Jace, because I'll lose my diplomacy. Go ahead. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't think it was as bad as you did. I agree with you that it did feel like Wonder Woman was a bit of an afterthought. I mean, she's really pissed off. And we know that she defeats Dr. Psycho, but that even happens off panel. We didn't even get the payoff of him getting his comeuppance, getting, beat on by a woman. So yeah, she's clearly fired up. Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you that ultimately Villainy Incorporated was pretty incompetent, and you kind of wonder if Etta Candy was able to defeat them the way she was. Why did it take this many issues for them to be defeated in the first place? So yeah, I still have faith in Cloonan and Conrad that they can do something, and maybe it's shifting away from Wonder Woman in costume and going to the Diana Prince. I think back to those early issues where she was traveling through different mythological lands. Those were pretty solid. So, maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been a fan of Dr. Psycho. I think he's a two-dimensional villain. I think he's very challenging to make interesting and compelling. And, maybe they're still finding their footing with Wonder Woman and they weren't quite up to the task. I'm intrigued by this idea of Hera as a villain. Maybe it's Cersei as my thought, this masquerading as Hera. I guess we'll see. So yeah, I'm hopeful for the future. But ultimately this was average at best. There's no other way to put it. All right, up next we have the Jurassic League. This is from writers Juan Gedeon and Daniel Warren Johnson. Art is by Juan Gedeon and John Michael. Colors by Mike Spicer. Letters by Ferran Delgado. A lot of action in this issue, and as you can kind of see developing, this egg that eventually cracks open. It's exactly the big bad you expect it to be. It's Darkuloside.
Darkuloside, yeah. Weird.
Yes. So it's this dark side version of a dinosaur. I don't really have much else to add. I mean, this is scratching an itch for some younger readers, probably. Although, like we've said before, so much violence. I still don't think this comic is necessarily for me. I think the best thing about this particular issue is the Brett Booth cover. Brett Booth is a big dinosaur fan and illustrates dinosaurs, in a as realistic a way as possible. So it's great that he gets to do a dinosaur cover. And if there were dinosaur versions of these Justice League characters, this is probably what they would look like. So it's okay. It's mildly interesting. It hasn't really resonated with me since the first issue, and that hasn't changed. So this is issue 4 of 6. We got 2 left after this. What do you think?
Well, I had a lot of fun with this, and like you said, you're either everyone knows what they're getting with this. This is just crazy, batty, nutty fun, and I got to say that the kudos to the Gideon on the art here, who basically does a good job duplicating Daniel Warren Johnson's art. I actually think it's ideally suited for this type of story, this Jurassic League, this dinosaur story. I like it much better. And no disrespect to the cover B by who's the artist? Did you say it was that?
It's Juan Gedeon and
on the
I can't
cover,
remember. Yeah.
on the alternate.
Brett
cover.
Booth.
Brett Booth, yeah.
Yeah.
Brett Booth is a good artist, but I would definitely prefer Gideon on this style, on this particular story, because this is a ridiculous, over the top dinosaur story with dinosaurs as the superheroes, and I love it. I love the fate of Black Mantosaurus as he's killed by Darkly Side, who reaches a hand out of the egg to crush and kill him. I love the attitude of I don't know what the hell is Aquaman or whatever he's called, Aquamanosaurus or whatever. I mean, it's nuts. It's just nuts. It's a lot of fun. Green Lantern, I don't even know what the Green Torch, as he's called.
Torch,
I mean, of what a name, the Green Torch. He defeats Atrocitosaurus, and ultimately at the end, we know that Darkly Side breaks out of his egg, and he's traveling. He's going to be going to Themyscira Island to destroy and kill all the goddess dinosaurs. And I mean, this is this is a lot of fun. You got the heart of Superman with his gets along with his, he was raised by his human tribe members, and the essence is there. And I think that this will definitely have an audience. But it's funny because I find that you can have a lot of fun with this, because there's actually some decent character development here. That, okay, it's tropey, but we can only call it tropey because we're so familiar with the analog characters of Batman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, et cetera. But this actually this is uniquely structured toward a dinosaur kind of universe, and it's fun, and that's kind of what I like about it. And there's a couple of odd surprises in there in the narrative, and it's like I said, it's a lot of fun, and it's it may not be for everybody, but I think that for some reason I'm just waiting for Todd McFarlane to do. I want to see some action figures. I want to get the action figure of Darkly low side on the when it comes out. You know, because I want that to be in the McFarlane line of toys. That would be pretty cool. So
Yeah. Yeah, I can't say that I disagree with you there. It would be cool to see. So all right, up next we have Batman Urban Legends. There are 5 stories here. Batman and the Outsiders Part 1, written by Brandon Thomas, Alberto Jimenez Albuquerque on art, John Kalis on colors, Steve Wands on letters. Then there's a Batman Demon story, Batman and Etrigan in Blood In, Blood Out from writer Henry Barajas. Third Jacuna is the artist, Dave McCaig on colors and Hassan Atzman Elha on letters. And then the Pennyworth Files, Chapter 1, The Fall of the Scales. Story and art by Chris Burnham, Nathan Fairbairn on colors, Russ Wooten on letters. Batman and Robin in Night Terrors by Tinny Howard and Blake M. Howard, Max Rainers on art, Hi-Fi on colors, Josh Reed on letters. And then finally, Bell and Bow, Greg Hahn is the writer, Mike Norton is the artist, Marisa Louise on colors, Travis Lanham on letters. I thought far and away The Signal and the Outsiders Part 1 by Brandon Thomas was the best story. I really appreciated the Alberto Jimenez Albuquerque art. Typically, he doesn't do superhero stuff, but I thought he did a really bang up job. I'm not a big fan of Duke Thomas. I do like the Outsider sort of template that Brandon Thomas has set up previous in Batman Urban Legends stories, where it's the 4-person team of Katana, Black Lightning, The Signal, and Metamorpho, and then that 5th person rotates based on who needs the help of the other heroes. I really like that idea, and I love at the end of this that Batman says, I'm going to be the rotating guy. We're going to finally find Duke Thomas's mom, and we're not going to give up until we find out who took her, where she is, and whatnot. So I really appreciated that. I just feel like Duke Thomas, he's just a boring character, even the idea that he's the Signal, he's the Batman family character that it goes out during the day. Like, I don't know. He's just never, I almost feel like Scott Snyder introduced him with no real plan. And again, I don't know if that's the truth or not, or if he ran out of space or whatever, but I know he was never meant to be Robin. I'm glad he never became Robin. But he's always been kind of boring to me. And so I do appreciate that Brandon Thomas is making him interesting. The Batman and Etrigan story was a little confusing, to be honest. It kind of jumped around. It was a little hard to follow. I thought the art by Sergio Acuna was really strong, though. It was cool to see Alfred. I'm a big Alfred fan. I miss him so much in the main DCU. So the Pennyworth Files, where Alfred was investigating and almost thinking to himself, "Oh, so you're the world's greatest detective," because he calls Batman at one point to check in, and then he's like, "Is this life and death? All right, we can talk later then," because Batman himself is in a life and death situation. And Alfred gets out the phone. He's like, "Oh, so you think you're the world's greatest detective?" It's almost like there's this rivalry going. So that was kind of interesting. The Batman and Robin Night Terror story, I thought was good. I don't know if it would be memorable, but it does give some insight into Batman's kind of the trauma. I mean, obviously, we all think about the trauma that Jason Todd underwent when Joker killed him with a crowbar. But there's long-lasting trauma for Batman there too, and it was interesting to see Tinny and Blake explore that. And then I really liked the Bell and Bow story by Greg Hahn. I thought the Mike Norton art was really strong as well, and it definitely sets up something more for those characters to come in the future. They're these characters that are definitely in kind of dead end jobs, getting crapped on. And finally are fed up and go on this like Bonnie and Clyde type crime spree. And even Batman shows a little mercy at the end and lets them get away. So be interesting to see when they show up again. So all in all, a solid issue, kind of an average issue, not just definitely not close to the strongest issue of Batman Urban Legends. But I did really like that Signal story. So what were your thoughts on these?
The only story I really liked are the Bell and Bow, because it was a Bonnie and Clyde story and it was 10 pages long. The rest of the issue that I was just very disappointed with it, quite frankly. Now, I will say in defense of the Signal story, the Signal is a character that has gotten completely, I think he's been extremely mishandled by DC. When Scott Snyder created him, I think there was a lot of nonsense at first trying, because for the longest time he never even had a name. Like he never actually had a name. Finally, they gave him the name Signal, and then his powers got all wonky, and there was an issue with his powers. And what I gotta say, I don't share your love of this opening issue of The Signal and The Outsiders. I think this is ridiculously long in my view, although maybe it's needed because Signal's been so badly mishandled as a character by DC that they want to give some background, because I mean, Duke Thomas has been looking for his mother for what 2 years now, 3, like it's been like a long time. And this is a story that should have been told quite some time ago, and he's gotten constantly sidestepped in these other stories and with these adventures with the Outsiders and what have you. And it's been he's had a lot of he's had so many distractions. And I mean, ultimately, this is just Duke Thomas wanting to find his mother. And this is a very long-winded story and decompressed way of telling us that he just wants to find his mom, and he's an absolute psychological mess. And I guess the Outsiders are going to help him do that. So I guess that's good for a setup. But I just really feel, I mean, we had a 2-issue Signal series, or I guess a 2-issue. I don't know, what do you call a 2-issue series? Is it even right to call 2 issues a series? We had 2 issues of The Signal like about a year and a half ago. Why wasn't this part of this story? And why is this in Batman Urban Legends? He should have his own mini series or something if it's gonna, I think he deserves it to get some attention. But maybe it's because the Signal thing never sold. I don't know, but I agree with you that this is something that needs to be told. But this was I didn't need all this or all this build up to it. All I need to know is this could have started off on how it ended with literally just him looking at a board saying he wants to find his mother. I don't know why he needs to talk to the entire Outsider team, and why he needs to or why Batman says, oh, now we decide we're going to help Duke Thomas. I mean, I get it. I just this was a lot of pages with mostly just conversations with people expressing concerns about Duke Thomas, a lot of contrived action. I just felt this was padding to once again justify in Canada here a $13 price tag for a comic book that that I have a hard time justifying buying when there's so many other good comics by DC. There's better comics of DC out this week, but I like The Signal, but I'm gonna wait to see. Hopefully it will pick up substantially next issue. And because I'm really curious to know what happened to Duke Thomas's mother, like where is she, who has her? Because I mean, his parents were like infused with the Joker toxin, and I'm surprised how can she survive that long? Where is she? How is she being used? Hopefully Brandon Thomas will have some good ideas, because he's had some misfires with Chuck Brown on the Aquaman series, which unfortunately, well, I think rightly so, was mercy killed and canceled. So I think Brandon Thomas, he's due for a good story. I think he's had some rough patches in the last 6 months, but yeah, fingers crossed. Just a quick comment. The other stories weren't bad, but the Bonnie and Clyde story with Belle, I just liked it, because Belle and Bo, it's nice to see sort of ordinary thieves in Gotham get away with some stuff. They're non-powered. We can watch these new villains maybe slowly grow and be organically develop. And I just like them. I find that they're likable characters. And I kind of like the idea. I will say that Batman maybe is a little bit out of character, letting them get away. But I mean, just think of how bad crime in Gotham is, Jace, that it's so bad that Batman now is letting just petty criminals go. They're just thieves. It's not like they're the Joker or the Riddler or anything. We're just going to let them go. So like, that's how bad it is in Gotham, that Batman doesn't even want to waste his time with just petty thievery. So it's like, that's minor little nitpick, but I like the characters enough. So we'll see where it goes. Just to cap things off, not DC's best week, but it did have some good moments.
Yeah, I did. And as far as Brandon Thomas goes, I mean, he said as much on our show. He always struggles with self-editing. So yeah, I mean, I didn't mind the context of getting, Duke's own thoughts and getting a chance to see who these other heroes are that have teamed up with the Outsiders. We had Green Arrow on the Outsiders, we had Mr. Miracle on the Outsiders. So all of that was fun as well. So yeah, I agree. Not the best week for DC. There are a few trades. Batman versus Robin Road to War trade paperback, which collects Teen Titans 43 and 44, Teen Titans Annual 2, Detective Comics 1032 and 33, and Batman 106 and Detective Comics 1034. So I think that's a story where Bruce finds out that that Robin has been imprisoning people under the Titans headquarters. So if you're curious about that, that is out in trade. We also have Deathstroke Incorporated Volume 1, King of the Supervillains hardcover, and then Commandy Volume 1 trade paperback by Jack Kirby. So that's it for this episode. Don't forget to tune in to our New Comics Wednesday episode tomorrow. And I should finally have some content that I generated at San Diego Comic-Con coming out now that I'm back and recovered from COVID. So look for that later this week, as well as the return of the Spawn Daily that you guys have been asking about. That should be coming up real soon as well. You got anything coming up you want to tease, Rocky?
Well, every Sunday now, it looks like it's going to be every Sunday. I do an indie comic review podcast with Jim at Weird Science. So I do that every Sunday. And that's really so my DC review with you and my indie comic review on Sundays, so people can check that out. And occasionally I might do something in between there, but it's kind of hard with I'm enjoying the summer. I might not be going on a lot of holidays, but I am enjoying the summer. We're getting beautiful weather up here in southern Alberta, so it's nice to spend time with family and friends as well as reading comics.
Yep, definitely the case. So that's going to do it, everybody. Again, apologize for the technical glitches and this episode being a little different than usual. Hopefully we'll be back to the regular format next week. Don't forget, if you're listening on the audio only, head over to YouTube, do a search for Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom ! Subscribe, like this video, leave comments, you know what to do, ring that notification bell. Conversely, if you're checking us out on the Comic Boom YouTube channel and you haven't subscribed to the audio only version, just go to wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe, that we don't miss out on any of the content that we put out on the Comic Source. So we appreciate you guys joining and listening as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.